Hi, I have this series of videos about the modern 7 deadly sins and how they show up in societal trends today. So technically this one would be called lust, but I want to talk about love more generally and the struggles this generation is having when it comes to romance and relationships and physical intimacy. So just to preface all of this, love is great. Love might be the best thing ever. I'm in a loving relationship, but I am not going to be talking about the amazingness of love today. Actually, pretty much the opposite. And I'm going to be discussing kind of the pitfalls of what it is like to try and find love today. Something that has been talked about a lot the past 10 to 15 years is hookup culture. So I feel like it would be amiss for me to not address this. In general, the attitudes and matching behaviors of people have become much more casual. The chillification, we're all taking love less seriously. People are having more sexual partners and people are more accepting of that. People are pushing off marriage until much later and just less interested in marriage overall. And connecting with someone in any sort of more than friends way is lower stakes. If you're only in it for physical reasons or just for one night, there's less pressure. It's cool. No big deal. You don't have to get married to the first person you sleep with. And I'm actually down for hookup culture in theory. I'm not sure if humans are good enough to do it well in practice. Treating someone as a casual hookup, you don't owe them a relationship, fine. But too many people seem to take it too far and think that they don't owe them anything, like not communication or basic respect, just nothing at all. We've all heard the story a million times, usually a girl who's been hooking up with a guy and she wants to know where things are going and he keeps brushing it off. He's all blasé about it. He doesn't want to have the conversation. He won't even look away from his game.
This is great. Just the three of us. You, me, and this brick wall you built between us.
It's not marriage. It's not a serious relationship. It's just talking. It's just two people having a conversation. Like, at least be engaged and honest in the conversation. The casualness should have a limit if this is going to work. Asking someone to speak and answer questions is not asking for too much. Like, we're at the floor now. This always happens. Someone has a good idea, like, hey, the traditional ways aren't really working anymore, and people could be happier if they weren't so restricted by judgment and purity and pressure. And then it starts to pick up some steam, and then it starts to go too far, and we're like, wait, hold on, like, we still need to be prioritizing health, and maybe meeting up with strangers a lot of the time for just sexual reasons can be dangerous, and young people have to be aware of that. And maybe there should be a little bit of societal pressure to be kind and not ignore or just be rude to someone who you're sleeping with. Some of this uncaring attitude can just be chalked up to some people are just assholes, but I want to put some blame on corporations and the business of love and how making money off of it has changed. The pervasiveness of the internet has obviously not skipped over anything, including finding a romantic partner, and trying to get into the dating scene currently without going online seems futile. The apps are a necessary evil. As soon as it became known that short, highly entertaining, fun, game-type content holds people's attention spans and is addictive, every company out there wanted to capitalize on that. And even though certain dating apps claim that they want you to eventually delete the app, that's not obviously the truth, because their goal as a for-profit business is to make money, and people in happy relationships are not using their services. it is in their best interest for you not to find the right person because then they won't be making as much money. I actually do wonder if there's ever been a conversation in the boardroom of Tinder or any other apps about ethics, if turning the concept of finding love into a funny little game based on instant gratification would have any dehumanizing consequences. When you're searching for love online, there is not a person in front of you like there is out in the real world. The only thing in front of you is a phone. And curated dating profiles are not a true representation most of the time. And the most curated profiles can feel the least human. Losing that realness through the screen leads to a lack of empathy. When you can reject someone by a 1-second movement, even just that movement feels inherently bitchy. Something about it, like you have the power. You're in control, and you can just dismiss a whole person just by moving your finger. It makes you feel like you're above that person on the screen. Another feature that adds on to that is the whole idea of too much choice, or actually the paradox of choice. If you get on the apps, it feels like your options are endless, and that makes it harder for people to choose. And once they do choose, it makes it harder to feel good about their decision. Especially for straight women who generally have the most options. It incentivizes pickiness, which is normal. Biological, females have always been the ones trying to fend off their many suitors, but maybe now having this many options combined with the detachment of people's feelings is raising standards a little bit too high. I understand that people have to come up with some sort of criteria of who they're going to give their time and effort to. But some of these icks and red flags are really starting to piss me off, especially the height thing. It's nonstop. And maybe this is just a personal thing because I am in a relationship with someone who's not taller than me, and I can say that it has never been a problem in any way ever, at all. I know there has to be a base level of physical attraction in a relationship for it to work, and that's the excuse, but of all the standards to be pushing so nonstop, there's so much talk of the physical ones. Like, you'll settle for the guy who only comes to hang out with you after 10 p.m., but you'll automatically swipe left on a guy who says he's 5'10". I know there's always going to be reasons why someone does or doesn't meet your list, but I want the right things to be on the list. I want the list to have things like on the same page as me about what we want out of this relationship, able to communicate, and considers my feelings. And this list goes for whether you're looking for a casual hookup or someone to marry. Unfortunately, the messaging that seems to be everywhere for the younger generation is a list that's like, number 1, over 6 feet. That's number 1, non-negotiable. Number 2 is rich and would like to spoil me with a lot of gifts. And I want them to either be a Cancer or a Pisces or an Aquarius. And they can't have any of these beige flags or icks, or else it's just not going to work. Guess what? Everyone has weird traits that you're not going to like. And we can all laugh about them and not take them seriously. But if you're going to use these as actual reasons to stop talking to someone and say that you've got the ick, that's just silly. And it puts weird pressure on people to like blandify themselves. Also, something else I see a lot of women using as an excuse is love languages. I guess I'm glad that love languages have gotten people to be more introspective about what they like and don't like in relationships. But love languages are not like actual psychology. The whole thing has always felt like gimmicky to me, like the law of attraction or astrology. Just because there are some crumbs of truth inside an idea does not make that idea scientifically legitimate, or that you should make any of your decisions about your love life basing them on the fact that you asked the guy you're dating what his love language was, and he shrugged and said physical touch, and you assumed, oh, that just means he is way too into the physical, sexual parts of our relationship. I don't know if this has anything to do with the rising popularity of ridiculous standards, but people are turning to pay for love. And I saw this article about the boom of sex work in the 2020s being explained mostly by, first of all, the internet, and people are more savvy than ever when it comes to understanding how to create online content and build their own business. Also, along with the pandemic, people forced out of their jobs and needed to find a different way of making income. And I know what you're thinking, sex work isn't paying for love. A long time ago, I remember this episode of MTV's Catfish about a cam girl named Nina, and she was looking to try and find the identity of one of her clients that she had been talking to for a really long time online. And this was one of the first times that I felt like I was exposed to a more realistic version of what sex work often looks like. Like, yes, she was a cam girl, so she was naked on the internet, but she talked so much about the men who paid her typically also wanted to get to know her and talk to her. They wanted her personal phone number. They wanted to build a relationship with her beyond just looking at her naked. They wanted to feel like they really knew her and were friends with her in addition to the sex stuff. And this is something that a lot of OnlyFans creators use today, typically by pricing higher tiers of, okay, you get the photos and the videos like you'd expect, but if you pay more, you can kind of pay to be friends with them and talk to them. It very much starts to feel like you are paying for love. Like, from the subscriber's point of view, they like your personality, they like who you are, and they are attracted to you and would like to sleep with you. That's what makes it feel like they're paying for love. On the one hand, I want to totally support sex workers, and they have the right to do what they want with their bodies, including monetizing them. But on the other hand, I'm worried for them because I know about the dangers of parasocial relationships. And most of these seem like they're a one-way, not real love type of relationship. It's not healthy, it's not fulfilling, and we have all seen examples of this kind of thing turning into obsession and stalking or worse. So while we might be living in a time where sex work is having a massive moment, Americans in particular are more sexually liberated than ever. Even bra wearing is going down. Casual hookups are the least stigmatized they've ever been. This type of freedom is scary to some people. So as always, to combat one end of the spectrum, the other end is having a moment too. It's like these two polar opposites are trending right now. Like, I'm scrolling through my feed and I'll see a creator doing a sponsorship with a vibrator company. And then I'll see another one explaining why men are biologically programmed to cheat. And then I'll see another creator talking about the best positions. And then I'll look a little further and there's a woman talking about how being child-free and not getting married is selfish and morally wrong. The polarization is insane. Traditional love is trending right now, and I see a lot of discourse about tradwives saying that it's not feminism, it's succumbing to the patriarchy, it's sad, it's pathetic. And I also see a lot of discourse saying that true feminism is letting women do what they want, even if that means being a traditional wife and doting on their husband. And I think both sides have a point. As long as you're happy, as long as the relationship is working for all parties and no one's getting hurt, fine. But similar to the issue I have with sex work, like I want to fully support you, girl, live your life, but right around the corner is this whole dark side of men who objectify you and are obsessed with you and want to hurt you. The dangers of sex work are actually terrifying. So when it comes to being a tradwife, my problem is similar. Like the concept seems like it could work, but also it seems so often to be tied to religion being used as a control tactic and putting restrictions on women, encouraging them not to think for themselves. So now I can't, in good conscience, say that no one's getting hurt. Tradwives often give off this vibe like they're being brainwashed, like they might think they're fine and happy, but in the way that an animal who's caged and bred in captivity thinks they're happy. They don't know all the cool things that the world has to offer because they're restricted and they're told by men and people in power that the way they're living their life is the best way. Pushing this type of conservative, repressive love where people are not allowed to express themselves in certain healthy ways is the same type of culture that we've seen in the Middle East lead to sexual violence and human rights violations when it gets too strong. Another topic I wanted to cover today is the representation of love in media. And something that has been talked about to death is Disney and how showing relationships between princesses and their suitors has not been very good for children and tweens when it comes to giving them any insight at all to what love and relationships will actually be like in the real world. And there's some level of defense in saying it's fantasy, it's fiction, it's not supposed to give them any insight into what real love is like. And while that may not be the purpose, I do believe that warped expectations can be an unintended consequence. And while there is still plenty of media like this, one genre of content that has become super popular for millennials and Gen Z is reality TV. Shows like Love Island are supposedly trying to show a less perfect, less manufactured version of what it's like for people to try and find love today. And even shows that I grew up watching, like Jersey Shore, I felt like I was learning what it was like, what relationships out in the real world were like. Instead of the overly romanticized fictional couples that I would see in rom-coms, I was also seeing the most nasty, toxic, superficial, misogynistic people treat each other like garbage and then claim that they were in love. And I would argue that normalizing love like that we see on reality TV is much more harmful than the perfect versions in Disney or rom-coms. Because sure, men who aren't Prince Charming are always going to let you down a little, but I literally watched Ron and Sam in an abusive relationship when I was a freshman in high school and thought, wow, this is really entertaining and not, oh my God, why isn't someone stepping in to help these people and stop what's going on? This behavior is not okay. It's not acceptable. And I was like sucked in thinking it was so drama-filled and fun. I will say there's one reality show on Netflix that I actually thought did a pretty good job representing love, and that is the show called Dating Around. The people actually seemed normal and they were attractive, but not in an insane way. And they showed a more believable version of them going on these dates. And some of the dates went pretty well, but most of them were just kind of meh. And some of them went pretty badly, but in a normal way. Reality TV is definitely here to stay, And if it's going to be about romance, I would rather see it portrayed more like that show. People on reality TV don't have to be exaggerated pick-me's or alpha males in order to be entertaining to watch. I've just talked about a lot of negative things about love, but even with all this bullshit, if you are able to experience a loving relationship, then you know it is actually one of the greatest things. Unfortunately, the glorious internet has taken so many of life's greatest hits and brought out these dark sides to them that didn't even used to be problems, like normalizing abusive behaviors and dehumanizing people down to just edited photos and pumping out stupid trends that make finding the right person unnecessarily annoying. So I guess if I had one piece of advice, I would say to try and keep your ideas about love grounded in reality and not TikTok or Tinder profiles or OnlyFans or a movie. And maybe it's really easy for me to say that because I've been in a relationship for a long time. So I would actually really like to hear about your experiences of finding love in society today. So please feel free to share them, and thanks for watching this video.
We are here on this very earth to love and to be loved.